We met on United Airlines. Was on our way to Lincoln, Nebraska for a recruiting trip.
In 1969.
Daryl already was on the plane sitting down, so you come on the plane and try to find your seat. I seen this young man sitting there. I didn't know who he was. And I asked him what his name was, and he said his name was Daryl White from East Orange High School.
Did you know of Daryl's reputation as a player at that point?
No, I know his reputation as a player, but I knew of his high school because they had won the state champs for the last 2 years in New Jersey, the Group 4, the big schools.
So he had a rep, well, in that sense, in your mind. And so then you went out to Nebraska and you roomed together, and then you played under the great coach of Nebraska. And who was that?
Bob Devaney.
What was that like?
Oh, he was a tremendous coach. He was a player's coach. He was a real good motivator. I mean, he would get on you. You never really wanted to make a mistake because you knew he would be disappointed and he would really get on you if you made a mistake. But he was like I said, he was a good motivator. I mean, he knew how to get on you, but he got on you in a way that wasn't disrespectful in any way. But he got on you in a way that made you do whatever you could to do to not make that same mistake again.
So I'm thinking about when the game actually was being played. Were the two of you on the same on the field at the same time, or were you offense and defense?
I was defense, he was offense. So we never was on the field at the same time.
So you would be Richard. You would be off on the sidelines watching Daryl play. Would you talk to each other when you came back, or the game would be going on? No time to talk.
No, really no time to talk because defense would sit on one side, offense is on the other side.
Why don't you just tell me, you have any interesting stories that you might like to tell your fans?
The one story that I remember is that the game of the century against Oklahoma. We played Oklahoma on Thanksgiving Day in 1971. The game was a tremendous game. We ended up winning, but the thing was when we flew back into Lincoln, we had to stay on the runway for at least an extra 30 or 45 minutes because half the city of Lincoln was at the airport to welcome us back. I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of people that was at the airport. You got to think about airports then. The security wasn't like security is now in airports, so it was thousands of people. Right. It was actually on the tarmac. It was so many people. And it was just amazing. Everybody was just so happy that we won the game.
And Richard, when you were with Nebraska, were you aware that the team could go as far as it went?
Well, at the present time, we first went there as freshmen. We had to play freshman football first, and then you move up to the varsity. And at that time, Nebraska was making strides to be a contender in the Big 8. Go to the Orange Bowl, and probably win the national championship. But we knew we had to work, and once we moved to the varsity, and then once we start playing and start winning, then we knew we had opportunity to become a great team.
During that championship season, the team was on fire right from the very beginning. Did you have any down spots, any trouble spots? We
had some down spots because every game you got to go out and you have to play hard because they want to win just like we wanted to win. But it was tough. It was rough. Just had to play hard every week.
Most people know about the game of the century, but I'm wondering, during that season, were there any games earlier in the season that you might have special memories of?
My special memory of the game is the first game that I started as a starter. I was actually a redshirt sophomore, so that was actually my third year in school, but it was only my second year of eligibility. Because when you're redshirted, you don't lose a year of eligibility. But that first game was against Oregon. And Oregon had Dan Fouts, who eventually became one of the perennial All-Pros, and I think he might be in Pro Football Hall of Fame or close to it. And they had Bobby Moore, but you won't know him by Bobby Moore. His name now is Ahmad Rashad, so you know him by that name. But they both were on that team, and I think we beat them like 45-7. I mean, it was supposed to be a pretty tight game because they had some tremendous people. But we beat them pretty easily.
If you had to critique each other, could you maybe Richard? Could you comment on what you thought of Daryl's style?
Yeah, I critique him. He was You know, since he was on offense, he was a tackle, so I was on defense in the middle. I know he was tough, he was quick, he was fast. You know, you couldn't stay on him long because he was a good blocker. You know, so you had to hit him. You had to get off of him real fast because otherwise he would drive by you. You know.
Daryl, how about Richard? Any comments you want to make of his style?
Oh, Richie was tough. He was tremendous on the inside. He used his hands. He had tremendous upper body strength, but I think a lot of his strength was from his lower body because he had real big legs and real big calves, and then he was able to get on you and use his hands to get off you. I mean, and he was extremely powerful but extremely quick too.